Okay, so the approach that I want to take is a bit different than usually in political philosophy. Namely, when I teach political philosophy or moral philosophy, what we usually do is we explain a lot of different political or moral philosophical positions. This person said that and had this argument, and this person said that and this argument, and we have this principle, and then you have ideas how to compare these moral frameworks or political philosophies and so on. But to be honest, you are old enough and intellectual enough and good enough, and we are literally teaching you critical thinking and analyzing, so you can go and read that on the internet and go compare, right? So there is not a lot that I could tell you, right? Even though I do think I will offer an additional feedback later in the week. I'll change one of my topics, I think, from what I have to moral philosophy, because in the office hours, you're constantly asking about what are the principles, how to compare different principles and so on. So I think that I will offer maybe one on moral philosophy, so you can come and see that one. But now I want to have a specific approach. I want to show you an alternative possible way how to proceed with political philosophy, how to even imagine what political philosophy is, how to even imagine what human society is. Firstly, let's start with general assumption. How do we implicitly understand human society? In all of your arguments, in all of great classes of Ivy universities from Oxford, Harvard to Yale, wherever you teach, wherever you are, there is a specific way, implicit way, assumption that people are not even aware of. How do we understand human society? And how do we understand it? We firstly assume that we have individuals at the beginning, right? And when these individuals, so our first assumption is that at the beginning, there are only individuals. Then when these individuals come together, they form a society. So our second assumption is after individuals come together, they form a society. Then within this society, we somehow decide what kind of politics are we going to have. Are we going to have democracy, autocracy, some kind of kingdom? What are we going to have? And then within this political system that we have, we decide what kind of economy we are going to have. Are we going to capitalism, continue with capitalism? Are we transitioning directly back to socialism, right? What they say is the difference between capitalism and socialism. In capitalism, you're promised to have everything, but in the end, you have nothing. In socialism, you have nothing, but you're not even promised anything from the beginning. So, then in the end, within this politics, we decide, are we going to have high taxes, low taxes? What are we going to do, right? That could be a president who decides, that could be a parliament who decides, and so on. So if I share my screen just to show you briefly, what do I mean? This is it, right? So this is our general assumption. How do we understand how human society works? We believe in so-called methodological individualism. Then when people come together, they form a society. Then in society, we create some kind of political system. And then within this system, it can be president, king, aristocracy, democracy, whatever. We decide what kind of economy, taxes, whatever. Right? You can kind of imagine that I will tell you that I think that's just a good night story, right? That's completely wrong. But before I tell you that I think that that's completely wrong, and once again, be careful. All of your arguments have this implicit premise. You always think at the beginning, we are individual, we are rational, we are free, we are we are our own people, and so on. So you always have this. All the universities, when they're teaching political philosophy, this is how they're teaching. All the newspapers from Guardian, New York Times, economies, the different political spectrums, they always have this interpretation, right? And I think it's wrong. I think there is at least a competing possible interpretation. But before I tell you why I think it's wrong, I'm going to tell you that it's not entirely stupid. Why not? Because this interpretation, oh my, this is being recorded, I should speak nicely. This interpretation is actually following a very, very famous and well-argued political philosophical theory, which theory do you constantly use in your debates, and which theory did we actually just describe just with very everyday terms? What is the theory that we have just described? You can just write it in the chat, or just somebody can unmute themselves. What is the theory that we have described? Go, tell me. Cameron, correct. Social contract, right? The idea of social contract is very easy. It says that at the beginning, we are in some kind of state of nature where there is no wrong and no right, where there are no laws, where everything is permitted, nothing is restricted, right? It seems that we are so very free in such society, that everything is so great. But what is problem in such society is that, is this a nice society? For me, that would be very bad society, right? The problem of security. Yes, I'm afraid that, you know, you're going to steal my cat, or that you're going to kill me while I'm sleeping, or that you're going to take away my food. I do not trust you. I'm looking at the screen. Sorry, do not take it personally. I do not trust you, right? I don't know what you're going to do to me. So even though it seems that we are all free, this is kind of, as Thomas Hobbes put it, one of the famous philosophers, he said, this is a constant war of everybody against everybody, right? We live in a constant fear of being killed, or something being stolen from us, right? And even if I'm the strongest person here, I'm obviously not, but even if I would be, you know, you can gang up against me and you can attack me as a group, so you will, you know, you will overrule me. And don't misuse that for the argument that humans are evil. I'm not saying that humans are evil. I'm just saying that, you know, resources are limited. We don't have infinite resources. And this is why at some point our interests will just clash. And when they will clash, if there is no right and wrong, no morality, no laws, nobody to, you know, restrict us, oh my, I don't trust you, what you're gonna do, because you will try to take care of yourself firstly. That's only normal, nothing bad. Okay, but now we are rational individuals, right? So what are we going to do? What will be our next step? Our next step, you can write it in the chat if you think you have an answer. Our next step would be that we would make some kind of agreement. We would say, look guys, let's just sign a contract. Let's just make an agreement. We literally don't want to kill each other. We don't want to, you know, do bad things to each other. So what we should simply do is, let's put it on paper and let's sign it. We are not killing each other. You can promise, Amy promise that you will not steal my cat. I promise I will not, I don't know, go into her house and steal wine from her father or whatever, right? So this is how, like, we can make an agreement that we will stick to some kind of rules to make our life easier. Cool. So now we have the agreement. But what is the problem of this agreement? Write in the chat. What is, like, do you now feel safe? I mean, sorry guys, once again, but I look at you, don't take it personal, but I totally don't feel safe because I don't trust you that you're going to follow the agreement, right? You maybe signed the agreement, but why would I trust you, right? And as Diego wrote me a private message, how do we know that people will follow the agreement, right? Exactly, trust on the assumption that people will follow. I don't trust you, right? So this is why we need to make sure that somebody will enforce the agreement. And this is the moment when the political authority, right, happens. This is the birth of political authority. We get somebody who will enforce these rules, somebody who will have the power to have military, army, to put myself in prison, for God's sake, right? So they will have so much power. So I will give a lot of freedoms away, as people are saying in chat, but in exchange, I'm going to get something. In exchange, this authority is forced to make sure that people are following the agreement that is making my life easier, right? And then here you can make all these arguments from social contract. You know what's my best argument? Once I was asked for Slovenian TV, right? I was saying, oh, the government should give more money to the poor people. And then the interviewer, the journalist asked, but government is saying that they don't have money. Government is saying that they would like to help poor people, but they don't have money. You know what was my response? I took the social contract argument and said, okay, but then they're not a legitimate government anymore. The moment when they cannot enforce the agreement anymore, even if they are really moral people and good people and want to help, but if they can't provide the money at that point, they don't have the right to interfere in my freedom anymore. My God, they say I'm born free, but then the moment that I'm born, I need to follow the rules from where I can cross the street to how much money I need to give to the state, to what I can do, what I can. This is what the state is enforcing on me. The moment, I mean, this is an argument that you could make if you would want, right? That the state, the moment that they do not do that for you anymore, when they are not making life easier for everybody anymore, we should not kill them and put them away. We just could not accept them as legitimate rule maker anymore. They are not allowed to take our freedoms away anymore if they can give something in the return. But then the other, and this is the argument by famous philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. I'll write you. I'll write this in the chat. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. This is the argument that he made. I probably misspelled it, but I'm sure Google will find it. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, this is his argument. But then you have a philosopher that made the vice versa argument, said, yes, but the state need to be sure that they only make the rules that interfere in public life, not your private life. So you have some, as you have some state duty to the state, and the state has some duty towards you, it's also vice versa. So you always have this question, how far can the state go? How far the right of the state go when they can impose restrictions on you? And this was the philosopher John Stuart Mill who was writing about that. If you want to get arguments about these two, public, private, how far the state can go, or when can we just crush the state because they are not enforcing the agreement anymore, right? Go read Rousseau, and for public private, go read Mill. But we are in a different story now. I have still one problem with this person who is enforcing the rules. Let's say that I decide that Jyoti will now enforce these rules. She is now this political authority. What is the problem with her being the political authority? Tell me, what's the biggest problem? I don't trust Jyoti, right? If I didn't trust all of you before that you will follow the rules, why would I trust one person, Jyoti, right? She has all the power, right? She can totally abuse this power only to use it for herself, right? So we need to solve this problem somehow. We now have somebody who is enforcing this, has the power, the freedom to enforce that, but we don't trust this person because it's only one person or a small group of people. So what is the solution? Who do we need to put in the position of authority, in the position of power instead of Jyoti? Who needs to be in the position of power? At least indirectly, somebody who is representative of people. Yes, this is Maria Cheng said. What I would say, not just a group or a group of people, we need to put all the people, not someone people trust, but but maybe you trust different people that I trust, so then we have a problem. So the idea is that everybody needs to be in the position of power, but not directly, because we can't all decide about things. So this is why we have the indirect democracy, representative democracy. So we together vote for somebody who is going to represent us, right? And then if they don't represent us well, we can outvote them next time. And these are these checks and balances system in democracy. So in this moment, democracy is being born. Right? We put all the people indirectly in the position of this enforcer, in the position of the authority, and they are the one who, through the representatives, are voting. Now, of course, the debate that happens here always is democracy really the best way to elect good people, right? Democracy sometimes seem to be rigged, right? Because rich people control the media and the media narratives, and then it's hard to be elected because we have poor people or people of color being put in prison. Nobody will vote for these people, or they can't even vote. Or for example, because you only have two parties who are not really covering all the issues that we would like, right? Or because democracy, instead of rational discussion, at some point it becomes just a PR game, advertising game, right? Politicians, because they know they just need to be re-elected, instead of doing good things, they just do things to cater the needs of the public so that they are re-elected, because that's their goal. So these are some inherent problems of democracy that you can really access through this point of view. But however, this is how we get democracy, through social contract. And in the end, through democracy, we decide about what kind of economy we are going to have through parliamentary elections and so on. So now we made a great philosophical theory that actually, now I'm going to share my screen to show you, that actually fully supported, as you can see here, fully supported our implicit premises. Right? So it seems that we are actually implicitly correctly perceiving politics, right? We have state of natures. These are individuals. With the sexy term, we call this methodological individualism. Then we make an agreement. The society is born, norms, rules, institutions, restrictions. Then we need some kind of political authority to enforce this agreement or to sustain the society. This is why we get, if you see where I'm with my mouse now, this is how you get politics. And then you can have a specific political authority. This is democracy. And then within politics, within political system, you decide for what kind of economy you will have. So it seems we have a great idea of how this our implicit idea, this idea that seems, you know, that we have, it seems to be correct. Well, I still think that this is not entirely true. And now we will try to look at the alternative possible way how to perceive human society. Now, sometimes I hesitate to tell you what kind of theory we are going to take, because this was a social contract theory. What are we going to discuss now is going to be a Marxist theory. Which will be a provocation for your thought, some controversy for yourself, only so that you start thinking. I'm not saying that this other theory is better. I'm just saying that this is an alternative way how to look at the society. You know, sometimes I don't want to give up, tell students that it will be Marxist, because sometimes when I say Marxist, people are like, oh my God, that's going to be ideology, right? Once I was lecturing at Oxford, at some summer institute, and they asked me, oh, this professor from Eastern Europe, tell us something about capitalism. And I sent the title of my lecture, which was The Marxist Critique of Capitalist Economy. And then the professor from Oxford wrote me back, oh, Miha, could you maybe, instead of critique, say analysis? And I said, okay, the Marxist analysis of capitalist economy. Of capitalist ideology. And then she wrote me, but could you, instead of ideology, say, you know, we don't really have the ideology anymore. Could you rather say thought, capitalist thought? And I said, okay, the Marxist analysis of capitalist thought. And then she said, but do you really need to say capitalist? I mean, is there anything else today still existing? Wouldn't you just say global contemporary economy? And then I said, okay, Marxist analysis of global contemporary economic thought. And then she says, okay, but do you really need to have this Marxist term in? Wouldn't you just say alternative? And then instead of having a very cool title, The Marxist Critique of Capitalist Ideology, I was lecturing on the topic, The Alternative Analysis of Contemporary Economic Global Thought. Right? So this is how people react if you give them language. So language is important, the way we perceive reality, right? And we are going to get there. But let's now do a bit of a more Marxist analysis. But because I don't want to be ideological, I want to be philosophical, I will start with the zero assumption, right? So my first question, if you want to talk about human society, is going to be, what is a human being? How do we define human being? Or write me in the chat if you have the answer. Or how is a human being different from animal? That is the easiest, way to answer this question. How is a human being different to the animal? And usually the answers that I get, right? I'm also getting now, these private answers. We are rational. Rational animals, exactly. Somewhat with agency, that's good. Self-aware, that's good. But self-aware and rational, then I usually say, guys, look around yourself, not necessarily in this room, not to be bad to anybody, but look around the world. Would you really say self-aware and rational? I wouldn't, right? And then some people are saying we create tools, we use fire, okay, we create tools and we use fire. My point is, yes, of course. But what, were there two monkeys at some point and they said, oh God, dude, what if we would now start using fire? Complex thought, yes, but why do we have complex thought? Were there two monkeys who at some point said, wouldn't it be nice if we would start thinking more abstractly? And then they started thinking abstractly. So there was some kind of reason, risk and reward of thinking. But why did all this morality, risk, reward, why does this develop in our species? But yeah, Cameron, because we are imperfect. We are biologically imperfect. This is what anthropologists are saying. We are biologically imperfect, meaning we cannot instinctively survive if you throw us into the nature. If you throw a tiger, little, how do you call it? Little baby?
Tiger cub?
Cub, yeah. If you throw them into the, sorry, Eastern European, that's my excuse. If you throw them into the ecosystem, okay, not in the desert, right? In their ecosystem, they will survive. If you throw us in the ecosystem, whatever that ecosystem it is, we will not survive without help. We need help, right? Because we do not instinctively, we were not there and like, oh, now I'm going to search for food. Somebody needs to teach us to search for food. That can be an animal teaches us. We have these animal babies and so on, but animal humans, but we need somebody to teach us, right? Okay, so we need, in order to survive, we need some kind of cooperation. And how do we, with the modern term, name the system of cooperating among people in order to produce goods, in order to survive? We call it economy, right? This is the definition of a system of producing goods in order to survive, right? Now, that means that we will start with zero assumption that we are homo economicus. That's quite interesting for Marx, right? Who is against capitalism and economy. We are homo economicus. Our first fact is that we need some kind of economic system to survive. Now, what happened and what would happen in every economy, even if you look historically, what happened in every economy in the human history always was that if we would now go, I don't know, to the deserted island, what is the first thing that we would do? We would, you can write in the chat, I'm getting some private answers that are correct. We would firstly divide the labor. We would look for other people, that's correct, but what, would you all start running for other people? No. At some point, somebody would get hungry. Somebody would go search for meat. Somebody elect the leader and split the work. Yeah, very future leaders theory. Sometimes Americans like to, the best answer I get from Americans sometimes is, we would start trading. That's best answer I get from Americans. Full-on capitalism from the beginning. But what we would probably do at the beginning is and this is what historical researches are showing you what happened. This is how society developed. Random division of work. Somebody would start a fire, somebody would go to catch, I don't know, tiger, mammoth, I have no idea what you're catching there. Somebody would go to search for other people, somebody would try to organize, and we would divide labor, right? This would happen. Like when I'm lecturing this, I'm always so very concerned because at this point, I always realize I have no idea what would I do there. I feel I would be totally useless. But okay, so we would divide labor. But now, what is the inherent necessary consequence of dividing the labor? When we get different tasks, what happened always in history, for very obvious reason, is that we create different groups. And some groups became more important than other groups because some tasks are more important, some tasks are heavier, like are much more hard to do. You know, if there is just, I don't know, if there is just Alma who knows how to catch a tiger, oh my, I want to get my piece of meat, right? Even I'm on keto diet, right? I really want to get my piece of meat. And if the Alma is the only one, the teacher, the professor who is with us, if she's the only one who knows how to catch a tiger, oh my God, I will praise her. I'll say, do whatever you want. I will follow you. I will give you like I will trade with you for whatever. I'll be your slave. Just get me that tiger because I can't get it otherwise, right? So the hierarchy is born. So we get some kind of ruling classes, ruling elites, and so on. So this is what happened, to show you on the screen. If you look at anthropological researches, this is always what happened. If you start from a random historical economic situation, it always, division of work is the first thing, then some kind of hierarchy happens, and then some kind of ruling class, ruling elites, however you want to call it, I don't care. So that is the situation. Now, the thing is that what is now the main intention of the people who are in the ruling class? Let's say that me and Alma, we are now in the ruling class. We are now the ruling elite. We have all the privileges. People worship us and so on. What will be, our own interests are going to be, we will want to keep ruling. We will want to keep our power. So if we speak about the economic system, if you look back at the screen, right? If we speak now about this economy, what will be in our interest? Are we going to try to change this economy, or are we going to try to do everything that's in our power to keep this economy exactly as it is now? Obviously, we will, Jyoti you're correct, maintain hierarchy, but how are we maintaining hierarchy? We are going to do everything in our powers to maintain this exact economy. So the point of the ruling class, their main incentive is to reproduce the economic status quo. Why? Because it is this economy that is giving me privileges. It's this economy that is giving the Alma all the privileges that she has, right? So we will try to maintain this economy. And as Cameron put it quite nicely, we will try now to create society around this hierarchy. Now, me and Alma, we consider ourselves smart. And what is now the first thing that we will try to do to sustain this economy? What is the first thing, now we are there, now we realize, oh boy, right? We are here, we have privileges. We somehow need to make sure that nobody else start catching tigers, right? What is the first thing that we are going to do? We're going to create laws. We're going to create restrictions. We have the power. We'll say, look, we will give you the meat, that's fine. But no, the rule is nobody else can, catch tigers, or maybe we are more progressive, more liberal, and maybe we'll say, look, everybody can do that. Unfortunately, the school for tigers, catching tigers, is only for us and our children, right? So everybody can do if they want, no restrictions, but it's only the school, only for that. Or maybe we're going to say school for everybody, but it depends on how we vote, right, on these schools. But unfortunately, only people with glasses and with blue t-shirts can vote, right? So we are going to try to create a political system that will cater to this status quo. We will try to create laws, rules, restriction, politics, society that will follow this status quo. So first mechanism, if you look at the screen, that we are going to create in order to reproduce our economy is going to be rules, restrictions, laws, politics. So this is not something that we individually freely create. This is only the first mechanism of ruling classes to sustain this economy. But you know what? There is one big problem now. The one big problem is that there is just two of us, you know, and you are 99%. And at some point you say, we are now taking over and that's it. Bye-bye, right? Revolution. And so we somehow need to prevent that. We need to prevent that. We need to do everything in our power that we prevent that at some point you're going to say, look, we're not playing your game anymore. We'll take over your police. We'll take over your power. There is just two of you. We are taking over. There is something that we need to do. What do? We try to what? What is the additional mechanism that we come up with? The additional, come on, write in the chat answers. What would you do? What would be your mechanism? Or you can just turn on audio and say, what would you do to make sure that nobody would ever try to do that? Enforcement suppression, but this is already enforcement suppression. These are restrictions. This is prison system. This is all this already enforcement. Try to justify the system. Good, yeah, justify the system. Religion, brilliant. Make people believe that we are in the best system. You know when me and Alma are really going to rule? When you're going to say, thank God that we have them. Maybe we are suffering. Maybe, you know, maybe it's bad. Maybe the life is so cruel. But thank God for Alma and Miha that they are our rulers, right? Thank God that we have this system. So we need some kind, all the answers that you have that you're giving me are brilliant. We somehow need to manipulate people. We need to somehow play with the mindset of the individuals. We need to create the individuals that are going to follow us. So individuals are going to be something that we are going to try to create, and we are going to try to create their mindset. We are going to try to create them. What do we call this? Propaganda, or with a bit more philosophical term, we call this ideology. Creation of the individuals that support your mindset, the way you want them to think. And now you have individuals and their ideology. You see, I will actually add this here. This is ideology, and not just ideology. We have here individuals, right? I should add. Individuals are here. We create individuals that we need. And now do you see how this is totally different? Oh, I misspelled it, of course. Now do you see that now this is totally different picture than the previous one? You have economy, random historical division of work, and the ruling class proceeding out of it, and then the ruling class using politics that is nothing free and rational, only a system of reproducing and sustaining this economy. And then you have individuals who are only thinking inside the box, who are always created so that their mind cannot even think outside the box. The best ideology is the one that you don't even know that it's ideology. And now do you see the difference between this picture of human society and reality, when we have, as you see on the screen, individuals, then the free, rational individuals from Enlightenment and Renaissance, right? Then we have society coming out of that when they come together. Then they create systems, and then they have economy. Here, no. It's economy that works in favor of some people. Then you have politics that is sustaining economy, and ideology that is sustaining this. Totally different picture. Alternative possible perspective. Not saying it's the better one, saying it's totally alternative. To give you a historical oversight, what that does mean. Look, when we had slavery as an economic system, what kind of political system do we have? Well, slaves were not free. right? They had no political freedoms. Only few people were free. Slaves were not free, and they were restricted to do things. What was the ideology of slavery? I really like that example because a famous philosopher, Aristotle, once said that in Greek times, he said that slaves are nothing more than speaking tool, right? That means that all Greek people didn't even violate human rights because slaves were not humans, right? In their worldview. But you see how this was the ideology, mindset that was totally sustaining this kind of worldview. Then you had, for example, feudalism. Do you know what is feudalism in Europe, right? The point of feudalism is that you had some landlords and then you had people, farmers, who were free, right? They were able to do whatever they want during the day. I mean, not whatever they want, right? A lot of things during the day, but then they needed to give a part of the things that they have produced on their field, the majority, they needed to give to their landlords. What was the political system? Right? There were strict rules. You got to prison, you got killed if you didn't do that. And there were just aristocracy, people living in castles who had power. What was the ideology of the Middle Ages in Europe? Why were the kings kings? What gave them the power that they are kings? Why? Because the idea was that they are the God's representative on the earth, right? That they have the blue blood running through their veins, right? And this is why they are kings. And this is why everybody accepted them as kings, right? And now we have capitalism, right? In capitalism, we are all free to, the point of capitalism is free market. You can buy whatever you want if you have money, and you can sell whatever you want, right? This is the main idea of capitalism. What is the political system that you almost necessarily need if you want to sustain capitalism? Although this is now changing, and I will speak tomorrow about that, but what is one type of system that you can use to support capitalism? What did we use in Western world to support capitalism? We used what? Write me in the chat. What was the political system that was used as a mechanism to reproduce the capitalistic elites in the capitalist economy? It was democracy. You need politically free people, because if people are not free to vote, if they are not free to create laws and rules and all this, they cannot act as investors. They cannot act as such, right? Meaning that please don't go away from this lecture and say, oh, this stupid guy said there's something against democracy. No, God, no, I'm for democracy. But I'm just saying that democracy was used to reproduce economy that was serving specific people within, the specific economic system. I'm not saying who is this. I'm not saying that that's a bad system. Maybe that's the best system ever. Tomorrow I'll say it's bad in different lecture. But I'm just saying that this was a system to reproduce it. Now, the ones who know the answer, because I know that I have talked about this with some people here already. What is the ideology of capitalism? Keep in mind that the best ideology is the one that we don't even know is ideology. The best ideology is the one that none of us can even think outside it. If people say, oh, the ideology of capitalism is everybody has the same chances to succeed. How much people actually still believe in that? We don't, right? Not really. So we know that's not the ideology. The best ideology is the one that we can't escape, oligarchy. But this is not something this is the reality of capitalism, I would say, yes. But this is not something that would support the system. What is the ideology that is supporting the system? Something that I am almost sure none of us, everyone wants to be the part of the top, but a lot of people already know today that this is not really working. If you would now raise hands who agree with this ideology, who doesn't, I think it would be 50-50 or 70-30 in favor. But I'm sure that there is one ideology that is directly supporting capitalism, and we all would agree. Inequality, that's not why would that support capitalism? Free market. I'm sure that there will be people against free market here. I'm sure there would be some. Individuality. I'm sure there would be some people who would say, you know, but you know, we need to take care of the collective also. And if you only take selfish, so this is debatable. Upwards mobility. This is not debatable anymore. American dreams are dead. I'm joking a bit, but there is something. I mean, I think that all these are great, great answers, and they are correct. But there is one that is even more hardcore, and we even have a declaration on it, and none of us will doubt it. Declaration of what? Declaration on independence. This is always what I get from Americans. If you say declaration, they say independence. No, there is a not. Yeah, Declaration of Human Rights. Declaration of Human Rights. If you would now go read Declaration of Human Rights, the first 8 things would be like the conditions to establish a capitalist society. Everybody have the right to private property. Everybody should have the right to their individual person. Everybody should have the right to dignity. State should never coerce too much in your blah, blah, blah. Please don't think I'm against human rights. I'm just saying that this is the ideology that is supporting the capitalist system and is sustaining it. And it's really cool one. Why? Because we can't even see outside it. Now you will tell me, give me the alternative to capitalism. I can't give you the alternative. I can't see outside human rights, you know, because this is the ideology that we are so deeply in. We call this term, we call this a ideological hegemony. Hegemony is the term where you cannot think outside of this. And we cannot think outside these basic liberal terms. Maybe that's good. I'm not saying that is bad, right? I have all the Mac products, and my favorite place to live would be Manhattan and teach there, and I exactly know where and all this, right? So don't think that I'm a crazy revolutionary, right? You know how I teach revolution in school? Do you know the film V for Vendetta? Movie V for Vendetta is a movie of a revolution in England, and the movie ends when the revolutionary people, the protesters, take over the parliament. And then all of my students, when we finish with the movie, they are like, oh my, yeah, that's it, right? Now we are on, right? And then I tell them, okay, guys, next time we are watching, so the movie ends when they take over the parliament. And then I tell them, next time we watch V for Vendetta 2, right? And I'd ask them to give me a copy so that I will run it on the school player, right, next time. And then they come in a week and they said, teacher, but we were not able to find V for Vendetta 2. It seems it doesn't exist. And I'm like, yeah, right, it doesn't exist, because the day after the revolution is the horror, right? It's like a hangover day where you're like, oh my, what have we done yesterday, right? Because this is the horror time where you need to actually create a new system. So I'm not, you know, I'm not some crazy supporter of a revolution here. Hotel Rwanda is V for Vendetta too. Very, very interesting, Giuseppe. I would actually, that's an interesting take on the movie. I like it. But now you see how this is a totally different interpretation of how we see human society. Oh, of course I know Vonnegut very well, Alma. I also teach it in school, and I think I know why you suggested that book. And just to show you now some like differences, you know, like if we go with the first picture, right, when individuals are at the beginning. If you want to make a real change, right? If you want to make a real change, what would you change the first? What is the first thing that you will change? Very good, Maddie. I agree with your comment. Funny. What would you? Funny. I mean, provocative. What would you change? What do you think you need to change first if you believe in the social contract theory? If you want to make a big social change or small social change, what is the first thing to change? The first thing to change are probably individuals, their mindsets, right? So this is why liberals, social contractists would go for education, narratives, creating mindsets, because individuals are at the beginning of their presentation of how society looks like. But if you are Marxist, if you look from this perspective, you can't change an individual, because individuals always think within the box. So you firstly need to change the box. This is why these crazy socialists are always, oh, let's crash the economy first to see what happens, right? just so you understand them. So it's totally, you need to change other things, because if you only go for, let's change education and all this, maybe you will change the mindset. But if you don't change this, just a different mindset that is going to support the same economy is going to come. Because you can't think outside the box. You know in what situation we are today? I'll tell you a joke. Maybe it will not be funny. You can at least pretend to laugh, right? But it's a joke to show you how hard it is from the Marxist perspective, from this perspective, to think outside the box. Look, the joke goes like this. Um, and it described our situation about how we can't say what is the alternative because we don't have the language, because we think within the coordinates of capitalist economy. Look, the joke goes like this. There are two prisoners that want to send letters to each other, but they know that they are going to be censored, right? And then they have a code. The code is, if everything is written in, I don't know, in red, then it is exactly as it is. If everything is written in blue, right, then it is directly the opposite. And then, and I think this is now the analogy for our situation today. Now, one person sends the letter to the other. Everything is in red. That means that it is directly true. It is in red. So this person is not lying. It is not blue. So everything he's saying is correct. And this person says, look, we have everything in this prison. It's very good. We are quite free. They are treating us well. We have a lot of things to buy. All is good. All is nice. So he's not lying. No, if I say that capitalism is cool, I'm not lying. I actually think that analogy, right? I'm not lying. It's in red. There is only, and then the prisoner with the red writes, there is only one thing I am missing in this prison. The blue color to write you a letter, right? So the only thing that I'm missing is not that something would be actually wrong. It's just I don't have the language to tell you what is wrong. I don't have the language to create the alternative, right? Because I always think within the box, because of this hegemony, because I can't get out, right? Because I think within the terms. For example, 2008 economic crisis, right? I will speak about economic crisis in one of the lectures where I'll make a whole alternative theory of economic crisis where I will try to challenge the idea. So I will firstly present at that lecture a theory that I actually believe in that comes from one Wall Street broker. And then I will show why I think that theory could be wrong and show a totally alternative theory of economic crisis that gives a very interesting prediction what might happen after the pandemic with Wall Street. So we are going to play again with thoughts. So we are going to do that, but just to show you a quick thing about the crisis, 2008, the economic system fell apart in front of us, right? Thank God it recovered, right? But it fell apart and we got two responses to this crisis, right? I mean, the first response was, let's save money, austerity, let's not spend, let's cut the spending. The other response was, no, let's invest as much as possible. Let's start a new cycle. Let's create new purchasing power so that people will buy, that companies will sell, the cycle will go. What is in common in both two responses? They are both under the for-profit capitalist society. So you had the capitalism falling apart, and the only responses that we have, I'm not saying that we should go out of capitalism, but I'm saying, do you know what that means for our mindsets? That we were not even able to provide a possible answer that would be different. Do you know how very restricted by these capitalistic terms we are? It fell apart for the leftists, for these communists. This should be party. It fell apart. Here we are. Here are 10 programs how we are going to create better society. Nah, not even one. We only have spending versus saving. A lot of debates, right? In the end, by the way, none of them worked. You know what worked in the end? Something that is the most true for Wall Street. It doesn't matter what you really do. It's just, it is important that we all pretend that it's going to work. Because you know what is the main trick of Wall Street? The main trick of predicting things on Wall Street is that you need to know that there is a double belief there, double prediction. In Wall Street, you are not predicting how much something will be worth tomorrow. Nah. you're predicting what others are going to predict this is going to be worth tomorrow. And at the moment that we all start pretending and predicting that we are predicting that it will be good and that the prediction will go on, then everything went fine. It was really funny in Europe after 2008, we had investments and then austerity and investment, nothing worked. And then Mario Draghi, the president of the commission, came and he said, look, we are going to make it. We believe on the right, that we are on the right track. Like in the next 3 years, everything went up. The markets has recovered, right? Have recovered. So this is it. It's a lot about belief, right? So we are so deeply in, and I'm not saying, I see the question, I'll answer. I'm not saying that we should change it, capitalism. I'm just saying that thinking outside the box is something that we do have problems if you believe in this picture. And there are some, you know, and evidences to support it. And this is why I like to say that we live in a tyranny of no alternative. And that's the worst tyranny, right? You know, in 60s and 90s, Ronald Reagan, he told you, we are promising you a better neoliberal world. Then in 80s and 90s, Clinton and these people were telling you, well, we can't really promise you the better world, right? We see it's not working for everybody, but we promise you, all of you have a chance to succeed. You know, so from better world from everybody, you have a possibility to get there. Then what were people promising in 2000s after the 9/11, after the terrorist crisis? They were saying, look, guys, there is no better world. Just if you get the leftists in or the right wingers in, it's going to get worse. And the terrorists will come and migrants will come. And oh boy, let me protect you from all these nightmares. So, you know, not even saying that they have any idea, just like we are saying no alternative. And now they are just managing crisis after crisis, not even, you know, saying that there is a better world, just we are within this world and so on. So this is from this perspective. And now, by the way, not saying that this is a better perspective to see the reality. I spent much more time on the second one just to give you the idea how the second one looks like. And just to give you a few more ideas, what is all in this all ideology. What are the 3 branches of government that you would say? I want to show you how do we create individuals? What does it mean to create a mindset? How these power structures work? What are the 3 branches of government? Legislative, yeah? No, I can't comment, somebody could write it.
Legislative, executive, and judicial.
Perfect. I believe that's a wrong answer. I believe 3 branches of power are Hollywood, prison system, and psychiatry. Why? Let's firstly go to the psychiatry, for example. What is the point of psychiatrists? Please don't stop going if you're going. I'm sure that if you haven't been there at some point, you will be. We all were. That's fine. Please take pills if you need. But what is the point of going to psychiatrists? What do they do with you? They make you functional. What does it mean in today's world, consumeristic world, the world of pleasures? What does it mean to be functional? It means to enjoy. So that means that I hate my job. I work 12 hours per day. I am poor. I have no family. I should be depressed. But now I go there and they're going, no, don't be depressed. And after I will go out, I will still work for 12 hours. I will still have no family. I will still be poor, but now I will like it. Right? Now I will be functional. Now I will support the system. So they make me functional to support back the system. And I say, you know, before you were exploited, but at least you were allowed to hate it. Now you're exploited and you need to like it and enjoy it. Because if you're not, you're sent to psychiatrists because you're not normal, because you should enjoy, because we are the society of enjoyment, right? Or for example, prison system. If you look at feudalism, there were 2 crimes for what you were sent to prison in the most cases. Crime number 1, saying something bad about the kings. Why? Because this was directly going against the system. No, kings are special, are gods, right? The second thing, if you did not give the product from your field. Why? Because this was the second most important thing in the system, right? Sustaining the system. Kings are special and the product. And now, you know, thank God that we are progressive society. Thank God that we don't do this in prisons anymore, right? Oh yeah. Who do we have in prisons now? Who did we put in prisons, for example, in Great Britain in the industrialization area time when the capitalism was born? Firstly, you know who? People who were fought the system, but who concretely? These are people who were not in debt, thieves. Why? Because private property was born. Before there was no private property, or it did not play such an important role. Now we put people who are stealing in prison. Why? Because they are literally union leaders, Giuseppe. That's fine. That's a funny answer. We have literally the most thieves in prison, like from economic criminal or whatever, but they are stealing private property and they need to go there because that's against the system. If you don't support the system, you go to prison. You know who are the second group of people who went to prison in, for example, Great Britain in the industrialization time? People who were begging for money, people who weren't productive enough. In nowadays, people who are poor. Why? Because they are not making profits, because they are not increasing productivity, because they are not helping system to grow. So literally, it's exactly the same role that prison had in feudalism, it has it now. We put people there, predominantly those who are not supporting the system. Now, of course, we don't do this directly. Indirectly, they are more likely to go to crime and all this. But this is how it is. By the way, currently in United States, there are more poor people in prison than there were ever people in concentration camps, in Hitler and Stalin camps together. So much about numbers and poor people, right? By the way, just one note. I'm not saying this is my personal opinion, and I'm not saying that this is like the final truth. I'm just saying that if you take the second perspective, this is the answers that you would get, because you would simply look, because if why is this different? Because if you would look, okay, there is a poor person in prison. If you would look through the first perspective, you would say individuals are first. Okay, what did this individual do? And then you would go through individual story, what happened to them, and you would say, stolen something, did bad decision. And that is true. But if you look through this different story, you would say, okay, first let's take a look what kind of economy do we have. Then let's take a look how this person was created. And now let's take a look why did they end up where they did. So it's simply a different perspective on society. And then obviously Hollywood, right? I said psychiatry, prison, Hollywood. Marvel. Iron Man versus the guy Thanos. I'm sorry, I hope I'm not spoiling. Cut your voice if you haven't watched it yet. So in the last movie, they both kill equal amount of people. They are both mass murderers, but only one is deemed as mass murderer, as crime, as criminal against humanity, but the other is a hero. What is the difference between them in the story? Thanos, who is a criminal, he wanted to change the system. He wanted to change the status quo, and that's why he's a criminal. But what did Iron Man do? He even travel through the time? He did everything. What? Literally to regain status quo. Literally to put all the changes back and restore the neoliberal global order. So literally the difference between the two is one wanted to change it, one did everything to restore it. They did the equally bad act, but one is hero, one is criminal. So much about the message that we are getting, the identification with the heroes that we're getting. Again, if you would approach this through the individual analysis, through the methodological individualism, okay, Maddie, I agree. Thanos wanted to kill more people. I fully agree. Yeah, so I'm stretching it. I do agree. Also, especially if you would look it through the perspective of individualism, you would see that, obviously the intention of Thanos, you could say, was morally much more corrupted, even if you don't agree with neoliberal order, even if you want to spread pluralism around the world, whatever, even if you want a change in the system, still Iron Man, allowed more rights gave more rights to people than Thanos. I fully agree. Just like you do see that you do have predominantly in Hollywood, like support for status quo. Let's not change anything, right? If possible. So you do have these three branches. Okay. To conclude, so now you see we do have these two different, we do have these two different approaches. And my only idea in this lecture was to show you that there are two competing interpretations of what political philosophy is. There are two competing glasses through which you can look at the reality. I used much more time in this second one, simply, you know, to show you where could we get. And yeah, you by yourself now need to decide which one you want to look at to decide where do you want to be. What I want to conclude is something that I always conclude this lecture with, to do the analysis of the 5 minutes, to do the short analysis of the most popular political term that is very abused in the current situation, and this is the term freedom. And I will analyze it through this perspective that we just had. And I will ask myself, what are different types of how very free you are, different levels of freedom. And I'll show you how sometimes liberalism can be even more dangerous, just to provoke you, keep in mind. Let's say that political power equals your parents. Let's say that this is the analogy, because your parents, they are the political authority. Let's say, and this is the example I always use, let's say that they want to force you to go to your grandmother, but you really don't want to go, right? Nothing against the grandmother, just, you know, that's the situation. And now if you have very autocratic parents, right? Autocratic parents, autocracy is a system where only one person is deciding what is right and wrong. Autocracy, one person is leading. Dictatorship. What are they going to say? Why do you need to go to your grandmother? They're going to say, you need to go because I said so, and you are going. And what happens? Oh boy, you go. Because I say so, you go. But you know, it's really easy to fight against such power. You just need to become politically, economically, physically stronger than your parents. And the moment that you are politically, economically, hopefully not physically, stronger than your parents, you just say, look, you're not a dictator anymore. I am now stronger and I'm dictating the terms now. Usually it's an economic struggle. As long as you live under my roof, you will follow my rules, blah, blah, right? So it's a struggle with authoritarian parents. But you exactly know what to do if you want to crash them, if you want to be better, if you want to go over this power, over this authority. What if you have totalitarian parents? That's a different system. Totalitarianism is defined not by one person ruling, but that we need to live according to one total idea of religion, of morality, of Marxism, of Islamism, of Christianity. So total idea. So what are parents going to say? You need to go because, not because I say so. It's not me who's making the decision. You need to go because it is the right thing to do. If that's a religious totalitarianism, it is what Maddie said, because God said so, because ideology said so. And now you still know how to fight against them, right? You need to go, you go to your grandmother. But you still know how to fight against them, right? You need to destroy this ideology. That's a bit worse, right? Because even if you defeat your parents, your uncle will come and he will say, okay, you maybe destroyed your parents, but it is still the right thing to go. So you need to go because ideology still say so. So, oh boy, it's really hard to fight narratives, ideologies, moralities, systems. Oh my, you really need to fight it. But at least you know what you can protest against. We are against capitalism. We are against Marxism. We hate communism. Let's destroy Berlin Wall, right? So all this. But what if you have liberal parents? Liberalism is based on liberty, but they are still the political authority. They still want them to follow you. They still need to force you to go to your grandmother, but they need to base their authority on liberty. So what are they going to say? They're not going to say on autocracy, you need to go because I said so. They won't base on the ideology, you need to go because ideology. They will say, oh, come on, Miha. As Maddie says, You want to go. You know you want to go. You'll enjoy it at your grandmother. And what do? I go to my grandmother. And with what I do exactly what my parents wanted to do. I follow the orders exactly, with one little difference. I believe that it was me who decided to go. So I literally believe that I have decided. And you know then what happens? Then I'm annoyed. Oh my, it's so annoying here at my grandmother. And then my mom said, oh Miha, stop annoying us. You wanted to go. Now be here. It's you who wanted to be here. And how am I going to protest this now? What am I going to say? I made wrong decision. I made wrong decision. You can't even protest, because it was the idea that it's your decision, because it was supposed to be consensual. And that could be the trick of how the ideology of freedom can trick you. Because for me, the only worst thing than not being free is not being free and not even knowing that you are not free. So that is my concern, right? So I think so this is like, you know, the funky analysis that you can make, thinking of different ways that authorities try to convince us, and just like you know, this is like, how do you think Mr. and Mrs. Timmons asked me to be here, right? Did they say, oh, Miha, you need to come here because we said so? Oh, Miha, do you need to come to lecture here because because it's the right ideology to lecture at GDS? No, they were like, ah, come on, Miha. You know you would like to lecture to kids. You know you will enjoy. You know you will scream in front of your computer. All will be good. And here I am. It's at 8 p.m. Instead of me drinking coffee, petting my cat, drinking, reading my newspaper, I'm now lecturing here. Don't take it personally. I love it. But you see, this is the way you can get persuaded. This is just, again, another strategy. This is not something that would be against liberal world. This is something that is to keep in mind what are the manipulative structures that are going to be used against you. Because keep in mind that, and here I'll get a bit personal, and not personal in a way like what my theoretical position is. I would say that you need to use all this as possible ways how to look at reality to avoid people trying to coerce you, right? So this is like, these are your pluralistic views that you can use in order to know what to do at Wall Street. For example, I actually invested some money at Wall Street, right, after having the idea of what Marxist theory would predict. So I don't want to crush capitalism, right? So this is, don't accept this as political activism, but accept this as trying to broaden your possible horizons of how to look at the reality. And this is critical thinking, right? That you have as many possible glasses through which you can look at the reality, and then you make your arguments and you make your own decisions. And this is what I think would work. And like the only job I see I have, instead of, okay, teaching you how to debate and create arguments and strategies, that I give you a very concrete advices I force you to follow. But in such lectures, I only want to like spur your thought, give you the idea, try to provoke you. If everybody disagrees with everything said, great, because now you have ideas with what you need to disagree and so on. So that's it. Okay, hope you enjoyed the lecture. If you have any particular questions, you can stay here. I can answer them here. Otherwise, we're done. You can go take 20 minutes break and then stay for the lecture. Hope it was something interesting, something useful. I'm really sorry for those who already heard that, but yeah, I was literally, I'm always, when I do something in America, I'm asked to do this and not one other lecture. And yeah, so I was asked to do again. So if anybody heard it, I'm sorry. Hope it was something interesting. Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.